is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And today, the question: why are white Americans always left out of the poverty story? When the American media talks about poverty, it has just been routine, generational, and historical that they will talk about black people and black people only. They'll break it down by age group, how tall you are, how many live in the house, what you eat, and what kind of housing you live in. They will talk about black Americans ad nauseum, but they will not talk about poverty in the white community. And I am not trying to say that we don't have poverty in the black community. We do. What I am saying is that we don't have the most poverty. We are not the most poor. White people are the poorest Americans. They are the largest group of Americans, and they are the poorest. They get the most food stamps, and they get the most welfare. But they are never included in the poverty story. It must be very nice to always have somebody to hide behind. So whatever it is you don't like about yourself, you can put that off on somebody else. And not only can you put it off on them, you can circulate it through your media and your propaganda machine all over the world. We are not the poorest, we don't get the most welfare, and we don't get the most food stamps. But the narrative always centers around black Americans when the media wants to talk about poverty. And increasingly, they're including Hispanics. But they never include white people or Asians. There are poor people in every sector of American life, but the poorest are the white people. They are the majority and they are the poorest. But we never hear about their poverty until they decide to write about it, until they decide to talk about being the lost people or the forgotten people of America. Because America has floated this narrative that black people are poor, but at the same time, we're getting everything free. And now you've got a whole lot of immigrants coming into the United States trying to get free stuff because the lie has gone out around the world that black Americans get everything free. But I'm back to the question: why don't they include white people in the poverty story? There are plenty poor white people in the United States. I have lived in Alabama, Georgia, and my father is from Mississippi. There are poor white people in these states. Appalachia, which is a mountain range that begins in Alabama and goes north all the way into Canada. All along that trail, you have some of the poorest people in America, and they are overwhelmingly white. There is so much poverty among white people in the state of Alabama and in Georgia and all the way up that Appalachian Trail that it will astonish you. And not just there, but in other places too. But they don't talk about those people. If you have never lived down here in these southern states or in any state where there's a large swath of poor white people, when you see really poor white people, you will be surprised. They don't even look like regular white people that you see on TV. They have an entirely different look. When I went to school with white kids, I went in the 10th grade, 11th grade. You know, there were some poor white kids there, but most of them were like kind of city kids in a small town, put it that way. And then when we had our 10-year reunion, I went back to the school and I was sitting there talking to some of the children, some of the white kids. We were all adults now. And all of a sudden, I looked on the other side of the room and I saw these white people. And I mean, I was stunned. And I asked one of them, I said, who are those people? Because I didn't even know them. I knew the other kids. But I didn't even know who those people were. They look so different. Their skin is very white. Sometimes it's ruddy looking. They do not look like the others. And I said, who are those people? And one of the guys said, well, they left before y'all came. 3 of us were in that class. The other kids just sort of looked down and didn't say anything because they knew that those people looked different than they did. They were very poor. These black people, especially these black people on YouTube, are always talking about black politicians being gatekeepers and they don't work for the black people and they don't do this for black people. They haven't gotten reparations for us. And then they call the politicians gatekeepers. Well, here's the thing. There are gatekeepers in every community. And white politicians do not work for these people that I'm talking about. Politicians work to uphold the status quo. They might try to do a little something here and a little something there, but they uphold the status quo. We just saw a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Nikki Haley and Ramaswamy are both Indians. They were trying to get inside the government. They didn't even attempt to advocate for their people. And the Indian people were surprised by that. But they didn't care because they were trying to get inside and advocate for the government. Ramaswamy even refers to George Washington and that crowd as our founding fathers. And neither he nor anybody in his family was anywhere near this country when the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence were written. But that's how desperately he wants to be inside. That's what you do when you really want to assimilate into white society. I believe that black politicians are doing about the best they can. Because we had one from Alabama when they first drew the district in Alabama, and we earned, which we should have already had, a black congressman. The first black congressman we had from Alabama went to Congress trying to advocate for black Alabamians. He served from 1993 to 2003, but because he was trying to advocate for black Alabamians and trying to have his own voice, you know what they did? They smeared his name and they primaried him with Arthur Davis, who turned out to be a complete joke. Arthur Davis stayed in Congress from 2003 to 2011 and then had the bright idea that he was going to run for governor of Alabama, which he realized sooner rather than later that was not a good idea. In the meantime, Terry Sewell won his congressional seat and she's still there. She respects the status quo. However, on her website, she'll have a long list of opportunities, grant opportunities, scholarship opportunities. She'll try to send a little money here and a little money there to Selma. But as we know, Selma has some real issues with poverty. Although Selma, like every other city of any size, has a sizable black middle class. But that's because of their efforts. It doesn't have anything to do with the government. So our poverty rate is at about 14-15%. See, what nobody will acknowledge, that for people that the government has been at war for hundreds of years, that's a pretty good rate. That's a pretty good rate. It never talks about the success of black Americans. The 85% of black Americans who are not living in poverty by American standards, they don't ever talk about them. They want to focus on the negative because they don't want to expose the poverty in white America. Ever since the Stono Rebellion in 1739, when the enslaved people, the free blacks, the indigenous people, and the poor whites ganged up on the white aristocracy in America and won, knocked them to their knees. The white people got together and decided that in order for them to rule, they had to divide these people into groups. And that's when they decided that being white trumped everything in America. So the poorest white person was elevated over the wealthiest black person. And there has been that divide and conquer, with white people thinking that they are supposed to be better than black people and over black people regardless to the black person's status. So to keep white people thinking that, they have to make white people think that they are more successful than black people. So that is why they get really upset. White Americans get upset when black people are successful. It is also why a white person living in a raggedy trailer getting welfare and food stamps will accuse a black person living in the projects getting welfare and food stamps of wanting a handout, when really they're both in the same boat. And this is also why Governor Dum Dum of New York sat up in an interview and said the black children in the Bronx didn't know what a computer was. The Bronx is about 56% Hispanic, Latino, or whichever one it is. But she targeted black people. Many of those Hispanics come from homes where the family members don't even speak English. But yet she made it about black students. I am willing to call that hate speech. There was no reason for her to drag black students into that. I guarantee you, she doesn't even know what the racial makeup is in the Bronx. So they like to center black people in poverty. And they don't really think about them being immigrants from other parts of the world. They want to center black Americans in poverty. And that is a part of the propaganda war against black Americans. It's a part of the obsession that Americans have with painting the most negative picture of black Americans possible. But they do not like to include white people, especially in the poverty story. And that has to do with keeping the races divided, placing the onus of any kind of negativity on black people and white people, regardless to their status, reinforcing that negativity. I just saw a video of a professor, either Penn State or University of Pennsylvania, and he was talking about poverty in white America, and he was having the discussion in class with black students, showing how America publicizes black poverty in America, but totally ignores the white poverty in America, and how white people receive that negatively because they feel left out, which they are, and they feel like nobody recognizes their plight. So they see America focusing on black poverty as them thinking more highly of black people than they do them, and how that encourages them towards political activity with somebody like Donald Trump. I'm going to leave the video in the description box and the comment section because I really want you to see it, because it really says a lot about America and how America uses black people and how it creates division between the two races. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.